So I've now been seeing a Reiki healer weekly for about 5 months, and I am blown away by the results. I literally believe that this has changed my life forever. Moving forward, seeing this Reiki healer has set my life on a different trajectory, different path in life altogether. Like, I have my life before I started doing Reiki and my life after I started doing Reiki. And I'm very surprised that I'm even saying that. I'm a very pragmatic person. I was in the Air Force for 11 years. I'm very analytical. I demand evidence before I really accept something. And I've gotten that evidence just in my life and in my health and in weird, crazy experiences that I've had over the last 5 months, all from doing Reiki. And so today I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about that journey for myself and how I got started doing Reiki and some of these crazy, unexplainable things that I've experienced since doing Reiki, and just kind of what that effect has been, on myself. So I kind of want to start 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I had my divorce, and I've got a son with very severe intellectual disabilities and autism. He's nonverbal, and I had a really hard time kind of transitioning to being a single parent to a child with special needs like that. And I had a really hard time. That's when I kind of started my spiritual journey. I started getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza, doing his meditations on a regular basis. But the truth is, I never really found that peace that I was looking for, or that progress I was really looking for on the journey, my spiritual journey. And I would kind of get really pumped and motivated and do these meditations for 6-7 months in a row, and then I would kind of lose my motivation. I'd try to get back into it, then lose it again. It's just kind of off and on the spiritual journey. And one thing that I did take away from diving deep into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work is synchronicities. I did start seeing synchronicities in my life, and just these unexplainable, really rare coincidences. And you can ignore 1, 2, 3 of them as, it's just luck, just chance, And some of them may be, but once you start really seeing these crazy synchronicities in a row, I really started opening up my eyes, like, wow, there's something to this. And so I started following, I started interpreting them as signs of like the path that I should take. And I bring this up because I was kind of in a lull in my spiritual journey. I wasn't meditating, wasn't doing a whole lot. And I had kind of a crazy synchronicity last December 24th, so Christmas Eve. I went over to my parents' house, and I have a brother that lives with them. He's a drug addict, and I have always had a very tumultuous relationship with him, a lot of tension with this particular brother. I don't have a very good relationship with him at all. A lot of negative emotions towards him. And but he was there, and he, for some reason, had some lion mane's mushroom, and he fried some up, and he gave me some of this particular mushroom. And if I've heard of this mushroom before, it's not a psychedelic or anything. It just has a lot of neurotropic benefits to it. It's supposed to be, really good for mental clarity. And I've always actually wanted to try some, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, man, I'll try some. And within about 2 hours of that, maybe less, maybe like an hour of eating that, I was on my phone on Instagram, and I had a friend who actually got me started on Dr. Joe Dispenza 3 years prior. She started teaching or doing Reiki. And she started doing this sometime last year. I kind of dismissed it, whatever. But she uploaded a video to Instagram about lion mane's mushroom within like an hour of me eating this. So within an hour, like, I'm eating this, and then an hour later I see she just uploaded this video. And it's the first video she's ever uploaded on Instagram. I've never seen anything of other videos about it. I was like, wow, what are the chances of that? I'm taking this as a sign that, like, maybe I should reach out to her. And what she was doing was holistic wellness coaching is how she framed it. And with this is you kind of have sort of like a life coach and then a Reiki session in addition to that. And I'm self-employed. I have a business coach that I meet with every single week that I pay for. And at this time, I was trying to make some different life changes and trying to change my daily habits and routines. And I was like, well, you know what? Like, yeah, maybe I'll reach out to her and, like, So she does holistic wellness coaching, great. Maybe she can help me with my diet and my morning routine, my evening routine, and just kind of keep me accountable to this. And sure, I'll do the Reiki, why not? I find the Reiki pretty relaxing. I'd done Reiki maybe twice before. I never really felt anything, nothing really changed after one session, but it is at least like relaxing, and it's kind of like accountability for meditating, right? When I'm sitting there doing Reiki, I'm essentially meditating. And so I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll start seeing her for life coaching and accountability, and I get one 45-minute, hour-long meditation a week just to kind of keep me on that path. And so I started seeing her, and after about a month is when I noticed the very first crazy thing that happened in my life. And so I have to kind of backtrack here. I'm going to share something very, kind of intimate and kind of personal, but I somehow developed this weird sexual dysfunction where I could not orgasm from sex anymore. It just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't, climax. And it wasn't an ED issue. It wasn't a libido issue. It just, when I'm with a partner, I just could not orgasm. But I could on my own, which is super confusing. And this had been going on for about 2 years. And I went to my doctor, who sent me to a urologist, who sent me to a male sexual health expert, who sent me to a hormone specialist. So 4 different doctors that I've seen about this. I've tried taking exogenous oxytocin before sex, exogenous serotonin, because both those hormones are involved in that orgasm process. I've tried all kinds of creams and tools and everything. None of that worked. And then I started seeing a therapist, and saw a therapist for about 1.5 years. And this sexual dysfunction was the catalyst that got me started in therapy. And I actually got a lot of benefit out of therapy. Like, we explored all the normal sexual stuff. None of it had any impact. And then we started exploring, like, okay, well, what's like your relationship with your family and your brothers and your son and your mother and all these other things. And I feel like I really cleared up a lot of baggage with therapy, although none of it had any correlation or connection with this weird sexual dysfunction that I developed. And the ironic thing is that the last time I was able to orgasm from sex was actually at a Dr. Joe Dispenza advanced meditation retreat. I met this girl there, we hooked up there, and it worked. And then the next day we hooked up again, and it did not work. And then it did not work ever again for 2 years. It did not work. And during that time period, I had 2 long-term relationships. I had girls I was very attracted to, that I was in love with, a lot of short-term relationships in there. Didn't work for any of them. And so I had completely given up on this. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I somehow lost the ability to, orgasm from sex, and that's just it. I'm 39 now. Like, I had a good run. I just gotta accept that. And so I had no expectation at all that this Reiki would have any impact on it. But here's the crazy thing, is that in December I went on a couple dates with a girl, and it did not work, right? Like typical. Started doing Reiki really in like January. In February, I went on a couple dates with a girl, and it worked. For the very first time in 2 years, it worked. And it's worked ever since then. So I just have this crazy chapter of 2 years where it did not work. And then I started doing Reiki, and it completely healed this weird sexual dysfunction issue that I had. And, the crazy thing is that I went to all these medical doctors, and to all the specialists, and we tried, fixing this through chemicals, through oxytocin and serotonin, through these hormones, taking exogenous hormones, and it didn't have an effect on it, right? And I went to a therapist for a long time and tried fixing this issue psychologically. Is there some kind of mental blockage in here? And in the end, it was Reiki that resolved this issue. And I brought this up to the Reiki healer, and she's saying, like, it's energy. You have energy that flows through you, and sometimes you get energy blockages. And that can affect things as well. So it's kind of like, you have your physical body, you have your psychological, and then you have like your energy body, and that actually worked. That resolved that issue. And here's the thing, like, I know a lot of people will dismiss anecdotal data, right? That is anecdotal data. It's my personal experience, and you can dismiss that. But I tell you what, man, like, anecdotal data, there's no more powerful data to me than that data. Like, I know that this is a very serious, like, thing, and like, this is the only thing that's ever resolved it. And that's when I really started opening my eyes to this Reiki. Like, holy cow, there is something to this. Like, I initially went here just for the accountability. I was trying to make changes in my life, and I wanted somebody to keep me accountable for these life changes. And I thought this could help me in my business. I thought this could be a business expense. It's going to be a business expense, and I was not expecting at all, zero expectations at all, that this would have any impact on this sexual dysfunction, which I've seen multiple doctors about. And so this blew my mind. And this is when I really started kind of like lowering my defenses and lowering the wall and kind of looking at this, a little bit differently. So that's kind of the first crazy experience I've had. After just a few sessions, this issue had been completely resolved. Now, at this time in my life, I was still drinking daily. I had a bad habit of drinking daily. I've been doing that on and off for years now. And this is one of the habits that I was trying to get help with. And after, when I first started seeing her, I was drinking daily. And after, maybe 2 months, I completely broke that habit. And got to a point where I'm only drinking socially. That's my rules now, is I only drink when I'm with other people. I never drink alone. And I've been struggling with drinking for 3 years now, maybe even longer than that. Really, the last couple of years of my marriage, I think I was drinking way too much, or way too often. And so for years, I've been struggling with that, and I've been trying to fix it on my own. And within about 2 months of doing Reiki, I've been able to completely eliminate that bad habit of drinking daily. And now I drink 2 times a month, 3 times a month, maybe, when I'm out socializing and with people. And again, like, I step back and I'm like, holy cow, I've been struggling with that for years. And just 2 months, and I've been able to resolve that issue. Now, I was putting effort into it, and you could argue, well, just having accountability and having to tell somebody that, hey, yeah, I don't want to drink anymore, but I couldn't help myself. I had to drink this past weekend or past weekday. You could argue that, well, that's what resolved the issue, maybe, but like, that's a hell of a coincidence there. I mean, it's super interesting to me. That's something I struggled with for years. I was able to overcome in just a 2-month period. So it's kind of the next thing that really opened up my eyes to this. Now, I also feel like I'm attracting abundance to my life, right? You often hear about people talking about abundance, and it's just very odd that how my life has changed in the last 4 or 5 months from doing Reiki. So first off, let's talk about like my financial situation. I had a divorce just 3 years ago. I had my entire life savings more than cut in half. And so finances have been something I've really been struggling with. I now have to pay child support for 2 years. I had to pay alimony. And since I started seeing, this Reiki healer in the last 5 months, my net worth has doubled in value. So all of my investments have doubled in value in the last 5 months. But not only that, I receive passive income. I have a job where I recruit real estate agents to the company that I work for, and I get residual income from that. And my passive income that I receive every month from that has also doubled. That has doubled in the last 5 months, which is, again, mind-blowing. So I'm experiencing financial abundance at this moment. The first time in, really since my divorce 3 years ago. And actually, this is right now, more abundance than I've ever had, in my life, even when I was married, which is crazy to think about. And it's just crazy that 5 months ago, I would not describe myself in financial abundance. Maybe I was probably, financial scarcity, maybe a better description. And just in 5 months, everything has just doubled. And I feel like it's on a trend and it's continuing to move in that direction. And if I just take that step back and really look at this timeline, I'm just like, you can't ignore that correlation, right? Between this and the Reiki. So another thing that I was focusing on with her is like kind of my so I've never in my life really had a lot of friends. I've always been very kind of a loner, and socially awkward, and I've never done very well with dating or close friendships. And if I look at last year, I really had no close friends. I didn't have like any guys that I could just go and hang out with. And I started really thinking about that, and I realized that actually had a big impact on like my relationships, because I wasn't getting my social needs met. And then what happens, you enter into a relationship, you put all that pressure on your partner, and you expect them to meet all of your social needs, and it makes you very needy. And I kind of had this realization just a couple of months ago, actually, while I was doing Reiki, and I was like, you know what, like I need more friends. Like I need to figure out a way to like make friends. And I put this intention out there, and I started taking action on it as well. And I started like, I'll meet a guy now, and I'll ask him like, hey man, like, can I get your number? Do you want to be friends? Do you want to like hang out? And like that is an incredibly awkward thing for a 39-year-old man to ask another man. Like, hey, can I get your number? Do you want to like go and grab a beer or something? Like asking a guy out on like a dude date like that, or a bro date, that gave me so much anxiety my entire life. But somehow I've overcome that anxiety, and I just started doing that. I started telling people like, yeah, man, I need more friends. You want to like hang out sometime? And within about 2 months of me setting this intention and having this conversation with her, like, hey, I need more friends, about a month and a half, 2 months later, I realized like, holy cow, I got all these new friends. Like I'm hanging out with this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy, and I have all these deep relationships with these other guys now that I did not have last year. Last year, literally, like I had zero friends, zero like close friends that I could call up or hang out with or grab a beer with. And I'm self-employed, and my son can't speak, and so I just have a tendency to really socially isolate myself, and it's incredibly lonely. Like loneliness has been an overwhelming emotion in my life for a while now. And so it's just really interesting that I set this intention, and now I have an abundance of friends. Now, when I first started, doing this, I was just hanging out with everybody and having beer. So I was just drinking, socially with them. And, I talked to my Reiki person. I was like, yeah, it's not really what I want, though. It still kind of feels like a step back. I'm trying to break this habit of drinking all the time. And I love it if I could find a way, like other activities to do with, my friends other than just drinking. And I kind of set that intention. And then fast forward about a month, I realized that that's manifested. I have all these activities that I do with these guys that don't involve any drinking. So I have one guy that I play frisbee golf with. I have one guy that I play racquetball with. I have one guy that I play golf with, and I have one guy that I play poker with. So it's like 4 different like close bro relationships, all with activities that we do that don't involve drinking. And again, it's just I just looking at this timeline, like I set this intention, I need friends. 2 months later, I have an abundance of friends. I set this intention, I need activities to do with these friends other than drinking. A month later, like that is my life. I have an abundance of friends, and we're doing activities that are helping my physical health, right? And it's not involving, just drinking all the time. And again, like, I can't dismiss that. I can't say, oh, that's just a coincidence. Like, I've never had that in my life, ever. Never had a group of, like, an abundance of friends, ever. And now, just a few months after doing Reiki, I have that. It's just mind-blowing to me. Like, my life has completely changed. I am experiencing a different life right now than I was before I started doing the Reiki. But it doesn't stop there. Like, my list keeps going. Like, oddly enough, I feel like my relationship with my ex-wife has gotten so much healthier in the last 4 months. Like, my relationship with my wife was pretty toxic for a long time, but like while we were actually married, and it kind of stayed toxic for the last couple years. And somehow that relationship has just gotten less toxic over the last few months. My relationship with my mother was always pretty toxic as well. She had this habit of calling me up daily just to tell me all the negative stuff going on in her life, nonstop, every day, whole 30, 45 minutes of all the negative drama in her life. And, those experiences, the kind of experiences that just drain your energy. I could be in a great mood and then, oh my God, kind of like listening to her. And this was like kind of a big stressor for me. And like somehow that relationship has gotten better. She doesn't do that nearly as often or as dramatic as she did, a couple of months ago to me. I feel like my son has made a lot of improvements in his abilities in the last few months as well. Just in the last few months, so he has intellectual disabilities, autism, nonverbal, but he started doing puzzles, and he's never done puzzles before. Like, really, like, never done puzzles prior to 4 months ago. And he started doing these puzzles, and he loves them. And I bought him a whole bunch of puzzles, and he has so much fun figuring these puzzles out. And it's kind of like a fun game that him and I can engage with and interact with. And I love just seeing his little brain, the gears turning, and him trying to figure this stuff out. We started doing flashcards with him as well, where I'd lay out these flashcards and ask him, point to the fish, point to the house, point to the cat. And I'm blown away by how good he is doing at that. Like, he knows the words to these images, and I had no idea that he knew these. I didn't know he could do that. And this all came about in the last few months. So he has been doing so much better in the last few months than he did before I started doing Reiki, which is crazy to say, I went to the Dr. Joe Dispenza Advanced Meditation Retreat, 3 years, about maybe 2 years ago, in 2022. And I told some people there, like, my whole goal here is just to help heal my son, give him the best life that I can. And everybody, told me, like, at that time I was just trying to manifest healing my son. I was relatively new to the meditation. What everybody told me was, don't focus on trying to heal your son. Focus on yourself, focus on raising your energy levels, and that will kind of radiate and influence your son. That will have a positive influence on your son. And I feel like that is the case. I've just been focusing on myself with this Reiki. I've gotten back into doing meditations and doing chakra meditations, just kind of running through all the chakras in my system. And I feel like it does have a positive impact on my son. I feel like it's had a positive impact on my mother. I feel like it's had a positive impact on my ex-wife. Like, the people around me seem to be doing better since I started doing Reiki. And again, like, that is a correlation that you can't ignore. Like, I can't ignore that. That can't just be a coincidence. It's just mind-blowing. I've also had just a lot more synchronicities in my life, and a lot more crazy signs from the universe. I could just go on about all the different synchronicities that I've had. Some really wild ones. They're happening all the time now. Just the other day I saw this sign that it kind of looked like an upside down cross, and at the bottom it said 222, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I took a picture of that. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night. I went and checked what time it was. What time do you think it was? It's 2:22. You know, I took a screenshot of that as well. It's just like little things like that that happen all the time now. These little signs that just seem like somebody's just kind of placing, you know, breadcrumbs around for me. I've also been having much deeper and wilder spiritual experiences as well. You know, I started doing just some deep meditations, and one of the things that's come about is like I've made a lot of progress in my spiritual growth the last few months, and one of the things that I started accepting was that it sounds crazy, but that like we are surrounded by spiritual beings and spiritual entities. This is something that Dr. Robert Gilbert talks about. He's a Rosicrucian, and I've gone way down his rabbit hole. That doesn't sound right, but way down that rabbit hole with him, and listened to hours and hours of his talks and lectures. And he talks about that, you know, we have spirit guides, and that there are spiritual beings around us all the time, and we have spirit guides that guide us in our life. Now here's the crazy thing. So he talks about that. I've been watching a lot of videos of people with near-death experiences where, you know, maybe they die and then they come back to life, you know, 30 minutes later, 10 minutes later, whatever it is, and they say that in that time moves differently, and they have this long experience going up to the afterlife and meeting with their spirit guides and seeing, you know, other past relationships and all this stuff. And so what's interesting though is like what Dr. Robert Gilbert talks about lines up perfectly with the near-death experiences, which also lines up perfectly with what people talk about who do like past life regressions. And it also lines up perfectly with what, like, you know, there's a book I read called Journey of Souls, where it was a hypnotherapist that would put people under hypnosis, and he would do life between life sessions. So not just past life regressions, but what happens to your consciousness between these two lives. And it would all line up perfectly with that. They talk about how you have spirit guides. And then if you look at all the main religions in the world, just Christianity, Catholicism, you know, they talk about guardian angels, and they talk about different spirits and hierarchies of spirits that you can access. And there's just all of them are all talking about the same thing, right? And so this idea that we have spirit guides, it just pops up over and over and over again, you know, and pretty much all religions talk about you having some sort of spirit that is watching over you that you can communicate with, right? Whether it's your guardian angel or, you know, it's Jesus or whatever it is. And so there are meditations where you can talk to your spirit guide. And I started doing these meditations, and I started trying to talk to this, you know, whatever it is, and it's communicating back to me when I do these meditations. And one of the things, you know, at first I was very skeptical about this, and I was saying like, it's just my imagination. But the spirit communications with these spirit guides or in these meditations would often surprise me. I would be surprised by those answers. And I feel like when I'm surprised by the answer, then it's not my imagination. I've had a lot of weird experiences with that, but I'll tell you one of them. So one of them, you know, I do this meditation called the Celestial Sanctum from the Rosicrucians, and you ascend into, you know, you see yourself lifting up out of your body, traveling above your roof, your house, the earth, you're floating in space, and then you see whatever your sanctum is, and you can imagine whatever you want. I used to imagine a church, and I'd walk into this church, and I'd walk up to the front, I'd sit down, and there'd be this big glowing energy, ball of energy, and like that's my spirit guide. And I can ask it questions. And I remember I did this once, and I asked it, can you heal Aiden? And as I am saying those words, it speaks over top of me, and it says, so as I'm saying, can you heal Aiden? It speaks over top of me and says, you can heal Aiden. And I was like, wait, no, you spoke over me. And I said it again. can you heal Aiden? And again, it spoke over top of me as I'm saying those words, you can heal Aiden. And that blew me away because it took the exact sentence and just flipped the order of these two words from can you to you can. Like he's telling me that I can heal my son. And like that, it's just profound, right? Like that, the exact same sentence, just a different order. So like that surprised me. And I don't feel like that's the kind of thing that your imagination would create. What's that called? I think it's called a palindrome. Or palindrome is when you can rearrange the letters in a word to create a new word. This is like a palindrome of a sentence. He's rearranging the order of the words to create a new sentence. And that blows me away. That surprises me. And so I guess now I believe in spirit guides, you know? And so kind of along with this belief in spirit guides, I'll tell you one of the most profound, life-changing beliefs that I've adopted in the last couple of months. And that is the concept of reincarnation. Like I said, I've been going way down this rabbit hole with Dr. Robert Gilbert. And you know, one thing that he says is that when you incarnate into this life and you have a specific intention of a life lesson or an experience that you want to have that is going to further the evolution of your consciousness. So there's an intention with each of these lives. And I think that actually kind of lines up with what Eckhart Tolle talks about in A New Earth. There's a sentence in there that I love, something to the fact that life gives you the experience that you most need for the continued evolution of your consciousness. And that lines up perfectly with what this doctor talks about in Journey of Souls, where he's putting people under hypnosis and asking them about, you know, this. And what they say is that we live, you know, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of lives, and we do this for the evolution of our consciousness, so that our souls are evolving in each life, and that you actually choose, you have some idea of some of the actions that are going to happen during this life, and you choose these lives to get certain experiences, and you can choose your life in order to get a negative experience. You know, you can choose the life of a widow to have that experience and to grow from that, or choose your life as, you know, a cancer patient, or as a rock star, or choose a life, you know, somebody that's very humbled or that loses a loved one, so that you can learn a specific lesson and grow and evolve from these experiences. And so with this concept, you know, this means that I chose this life with my son for the experiences that I'm going to get from it, for the growth that I'm going to get from this life. And that has changed everything. Me accepting that notion that this is not something bad that happened to me and I just got to make the best of a bad situation. You know, I just got to be an optimist and look on the bright side, you know, or that, you know, I'm unlucky and, you know, this is just by chance. This is what happened to me. You know, my son has this random genetic mutation and has these disabilities. Like, no, that narrative is gone now. And I replace it with this narrative that I chose this life. I chose this path in order to grow from it. I wanted this experience. And with this framing, this also means that my son chose this path. He chose this life, you know, for the experience that he's going to get out of it as well, the evolution and the growth. And I've only accepted this narrative recently. And a lot of this is from talking to my holistic wellness coach, my Reiki healer, and kind of bouncing these ideas back and forth from her, and kind of getting her feedback, and, you know, really kind of helped give me clarity on this stuff. And this framing has changed everything in my life. Like, once I started accepting that, I swear, I feel like weight has been lifted off my shoulders and off my chest. I physically feel lighter, which is crazy. I feel lighter just by accepting this notion that I chose this life. And it also like really reprioritizes, my priorities in life. This past weekend, I had my son the entire weekend. I usually have 50% custody with him. And he was just being really needy. He's just nonstop whole weekend, just wanted my attention, wanted me to engage with him, wanted me to read books to him, do puzzles with him, just nonstop. And in the past, I've gotten frustrated with that. And I'm always thinking like, there's all this stuff I should be doing. I should be working out and getting healthy, and I should be cleaning, and I should be working on my business and making progress on that. And I got to pay bills, and I got to do my taxes. I got all the stuff I need to be doing. I don't have time for this. But now, like with this new framing, I look at him, and I say, no. This is what I should be doing. This is what I am here for. This was my intention with this incarnation, was to have this experience with my son. This is the meaning of my life, is to have this deep relationship with my son. And that gives me such a sense of peace and just calmness. And, the sense of urgency that I need to be doing all these different things just melted away. What I need to be doing is having a deep relationship, with my son and connecting with them. And, I did one of these meditations, and I asked my spirit guide, what was my intention with this incarnation? And what she told me, what it told me was to learn love. And that's really stuck with me, to learn love. That was my intention with this incarnation. And out of all the situations that, I could have, like this one that I have with Aiden lines up perfectly with that intention to learn love. They say like one of the hardest things is to love people that have done something wrong to you, and like forgive them and still love them. And that doesn't quite apply to the situation with Aiden, but Aiden just caused me a lot of strife and a lot of stress and a lot of challenges. And, there was a time where I did kind of like have some resentment that, I had all these things that I wanted to accomplish, and I felt like he was just a ball and chain wrapped around my neck, keeping me from hitting all these goals. And I've overcome all of that. And I have nothing but absolute unconditional love for my son now. And like, I think that was my intention of this manifestation, of this incarnation. That was my intention of this life, is just to learn love on a deeper level. And, what's interesting is my spirit guide didn't say learn to love. He said learn love. And I think that is learning to give love, but it's also learning to have self-love, and it's also learning to receive love from my son as well. So yeah, when I say that like this experience with Reiki has changed my life, I genuinely mean that. And I have my life before I started doing Reiki, and now I have my life after I've started doing Reiki. And my life is forever on a different course and a different path altogether after doing Reiki like this. Yeah, I just want to kind of share with you my personal experience with that.